we will be sharing the recording with participants afterwards, so you can review what was said. I'm going to welcome each speaker as we come to the sessions, and we've got a really interesting spotlight event. So it's quite complex in that we're going to have quite a number of speakers doing very short 5-minute pitches about their area of interest or activity, and then we'll have a short period for some Q&A for the speakers after each short session. We'll have 4 short sessions in total. And the Q&A, we're going to run that by people putting questions into the chat function, if you would, rather than trying to open up the mics for everybody. The big thing that I need to do, of course, is to try to ensure that speakers keep to time. So this is a very special message to all of our speakers. You have 5 minutes each. Please bear that in mind. At the end of the short pitch sessions, we're going to close the formal meeting in about an hour's time, and then there'll be a further sort of 20-25 minutes or so for people to participate in small breakout rooms if you want to find out a bit more. So the speakers will go to a particular breakout room and we'll tell you what those are, and then you can join that breakout room if you want to talk to the speaker in more detail or find out a little bit more about their area. Just to say now as well, we're going to have an additional breakout room with Ron Dyer, who is a senior university teacher at the University of Sheffield Management School, and Ron is available to discuss integrating technology to combat cyber risk. So although Ron's not doing a pitch session, he is there available for a lengthier discussion at the end. Okay, so I'm going, I think, to introduce our first set of speakers. I'm pausing slowly to see if anyone wants to tell me that I need to say anything else. I don't give any fire instructions or anything like that. So unless somebody interrupts, I'm going to crack on. Okay. First of all, I'm going to introduce Dr. Alex Shenfield, who's Associate Professor of Machine Learning at Sheffield Hallam University, and my other colleague, Professor Alessandro de Nuovo, Professor of Machine Intelligence, again from Sheffield Hallam University. Alex will talk about AI, the next industrial revolution, followed by Alessandro talking about intelligent robots in social care. Okay, over to you.
Hi, I'm just trying to share my slides. Hang on a minute. There we go. So hopefully now you can see my slides. So good afternoon and welcome to my spotlight talk on applying artificial intelligence in the real world to solve business problems.
Alex, sorry, have you got your camera turned on, Alex? Just that
you want the camera turned on? I'm not wearing a shirt, so.
I don't wear anything.
No, I've got a t-shirt on. It's fine. Here you go.
Perfect.
Welcome. Right. So anyway, so good afternoon. So I've titled this talk AI, the next industrial revolution, but there's a fairly good case to be made that applying AI in the current shift to automation of manufacturing processes is a major part of Industry 4.0. So maybe we split the difference and call it Industry 4.5. In this talk, I'm going to present a really high-level view of what I think AI is and how it can be applied in the real world before giving a brief overview of some of the work my group at Sheffield Hallam are doing. So, first, an introduction to me. I'm an associate professor in machine learning at Sheffield Hallam, and my background is electronic, computer and systems engineering. I've worked in machine learning and AI for about 20 years now, and I'm passionate about seeing the applied effects of research in the real world, which I guess comes from my engineering background. I'm also a senior member of the IEEE, and at one point or another, I've been involved in grants from most of the major research councils, including current grants from BBSRC, Innovate UK and Research England. So, what is AI? Well, fundamentally, AI refers to machines that can learn and reason, and to use their learned knowledge to identify patterns in and make decisions from new data. At the moment, there's a bit of a division amongst researchers. Some focus on the idea of creating systems with general intelligence that are able to think and understand the world and apply this intelligence in a general fashion, much like the human brain. Whereas others focus on a much narrower definition, where machines learn how to apply intelligence in a much more goal-focused way to solve specific tasks. This narrow AI has seen a huge amount of breakthroughs over the last 5 years, achieving human comparable performance in a range of tasks, from computer vision to extracting insights from language. However, we are still a long way off any kind of artificial general intelligence. And in 2018, a survey of 23 prominent AI researchers put the average estimate of the creation of a machine capable of general intelligence being no sooner than the end of this century. So, although the realization of artificial general intelligence might be a long way off, the recent advances in narrow AI have opened up a load of ways to automate business processes, from production lines through to professional services. This slide highlights some of the potential applications of AI in a wide range of businesses. We can use AI approaches to improve manufacturing operations and logistics, but potentially as valuable as that is the ability to apply AI in extracting insights from a range of data sources to improve the efficiency of business operations. I think there's been quite a lot said over the last year or so regarding the application of AI in manufacturing, so I'm not going to dwell on it here, though I will mention it later on in this slot. But I think there's generally less awareness in how AI can transform other industries. In particular, many of these other applications are driven by the rapid progress made in the last few years in applying AI to language, allowing the automated extraction of important insights from written data. Some current potential applications of this include stuff like entity recognition, where AI algorithms can recognize and extract things such as people, places, and organizations based on the context in which they are used, rather than just rote memorization of specific examples. This kind of approach is particularly useful in high-value service industries, such as accountancy and legal, where it can be used to support currently time-intensive manual document searches by providing some level of automation. In fact, one project we were involved with recently was with an audit firm looking at improving the accuracy and the efficiency of spend classification of invoice items. Another potential application is in document summarization, where a short summary conveying the key points of a document is automatically produced from the full text. Again, this has many potential applications in any industry that requires dealing with large knowledge stores. There's also conversational AI used in customer support solutions such as chatbots, and sentiment classification, where passages of text can be classified according to the sentiment expressed in them. And this approach is often used in generating insights from stuff like product reviews, which can again help with customer support solutions and customer retention. So, as mentioned earlier, there's been quite a lot of discussion over the last few years about the application of AI in manufacturing industries, particularly in relation to Industry 4.0 applications. I've worked closely with Siemens on a couple of projects recently, and their current view is that the data collection side of the industrial Internet of Things is pretty much solved, with many off-the-shelf solutions available for acquiring machine operating data from production processes. But what is still lacking is the ability to use this data effectively to generate knowledge and insights about what's going on in the factory, in the production process. So the food and drink industry is currently the largest manufacturing sector in the UK, though traditionally it's been quite slow to adopt new technologies and approaches. So one of the current projects that I'm working on is in conjunction with a company called Coolmill and with the National Centre for Excellence in Food Engineering, looking at using AI-based computer vision techniques in automated quality assurance applied to rice mills. This quality information is then fed back into the rice milling process to A, improve the milling operation, and B, to identify impending faults and/or problems before they have any impact on the production output. By using this AI in a few different ways, we're able to gather insights about the milling process and to perform remote condition monitoring and predictive maintenance. Another application that my group has been working on is in healthcare. And in this presentation, I'm going to show two current examples we're working on. The first is in applying AI-based computer vision techniques to transforming medical image analysis, in this case digital pathology, for isolating cell nuclei and identifying cancerous cells. Work here is being done in conjunction with Sunnybrook Health Sciences Centre in Canada, the Northern Pathology Imaging Cooperative, and Sheffield Teaching Hospitals. So here we're using novel AI algorithms to find the location of the cell nuclei within a digitised tumour biopsy before identifying what type of cell it is, and then characterising key clinical biomarkers from that information. And these clinical biomarkers can then be used in predicting both treatment response and developing personalised treatment plans for patients. The second example is in the AI-based real-time analysis of physiological signals, in this case heart rate data. We've shown that by using AI, we can accurately detect intermittent atrial fibrillation, which is a key precursor to stroke episodes, from simple heart rate data in real time. Usually, atrial fibrillation is diagnosed during an ECG. However, intermittent atrial fibrillation episodes can often be quite difficult to pick up because they might not occur when you're hooked up to the machine. Our work has shown that we can accurately diagnose such episodes using commercial heart rate monitors, such as those used for fitness monitoring, and they can be worn 24/7. And we're currently collaborating with Sheffield Teaching Hospital in early stage clinical trials of this approach.
Alex, we need to wrap this up pretty quickly, I'm afraid.
Yep. Final slide. And finally, I wanted to highlight an application of AI in knowledge services. And in this project, partially funded by the ERDF, we worked with a small academic publishing company called British Online Archives to revolutionise the type of archive data they can deal with and reduce the time it takes to digitise, curate, and publish a collection of records. We've developed tools in three main areas. Firstly, to help with the OCR process for scanning digital documents. Secondly, to generate additional metadata from images, diagrams, tables, etc., contained in those historical archives. And thirdly, to generate additional metadata through machine learning analysis of the text from the scanned documents. So if any of this piqued your interest, then I'll be available to answer questions after the next talk and at the end of the session in the various breakout rooms. So Sheffield Hallam's got several ways of engaging with SMEs in the local region, and I think Antony.davies is going to discuss these in greater depth in his slot. But if you're interested in any of these collaboration opportunities, please get in touch with me in the breakout rooms or ping me an email, and my details are on this slide. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Alex. I'm going to pass straight over to Alessandro, and then we'll come back to any questions. By the way, if people have any questions for Alex, please feel free to put them into the chat now, and addition for Alessandro as the talk takes place.
Thank you. I'll start straight away. I'm Alessandro Nuovo. I'm Professor of Machine Intelligence at the Department of Computing, Sheffield Hallam University. But I'm also the lead of technological and digital innovations at the Advanced Wellbeing Research Center, which is a world-leading research center with cutting-edge facilities and equipment that aims to be a catalyzer for cross-sectorial innovation with closer collaboration with leading industry, local communities, authorities, and charities. So the work that I'm going to present, with the help of some friends that you will see later, is done within the umbrella of Sheffield Robotics, which is a collaboration between Sheffield Hallam and the University of Sheffield, that we share our, of course, knowledge, but also our equipment and facilities about robotics and responsible innovation in this area. So particularly, one of our topics is collaboration between human and robots, so how the robots could be useful for the humans. And I will be focusing this presentation on how intelligence robots could help the social care sector, both from for the older people and the children. So I'm now pass the microphone to some colleagues that will tell you about our research projects. Please increase the volume because they are quite far and the volume will be quite lower. So.
The most advanced digital and technological innovation research at the AWRC. It is nice to meet you all. I am a mobile robot assistant designed to actively support humans in their daily life and their home, healthcare institutions, and hospitals. You get to see an example of socially assisted robotics. For instance, robots can help to tackle the problem of the aging population. Their intelligence range from the simplest and more reliable telepresence platforms for communication purposes and the pet-like robots for companionship to the most sophisticated humanoid robots like me. I am very versatile. I may provide many services, but still need research and development before being fully ready to help. I am very keen to learn from the experts. An example of our research is the European project Era, which developed 11 intelligence robotics services to support older people to live longer and independently at home. These services were designed with over 100 potential users who tested and positively scored them. They covered several daily activities, like to dispose of the garbage, remind medicines, do the shopping, and so on. Importantly, I am not going to replace any human. Our aim is to empower the individuals and relieve human carers from repetitive tasks so that they can spend more quality time with the older people. In another project, we have partnered with IBM to study the use of their cloud services to build an integrated cloud system for cognitive assessment through human-robot interaction. The idea is that we will be able to measure the cognitive level of a person as we now do with blood pressure devices. The information will be analyzed by the artificial intelligence in the cloud. The potential is to automatize initial screenings that busy doctors don't have time to do and collect data about the progress of cognitive decline and mental conditions. That's it from me. Now, I give the floor to my little friend now that will tell you about how he can help and care for the children.
Hello, I am a small humanoid robot. I can speak 20 languages and I can do many things like singing and dancing. I am very popular with kids, especially those with autism, who find easier to learn by my simulated social interaction. Indeed, I was a great help in the European project Ceri, in which I was programmed to support the clinical staff in the training of children with autism spectrum disorder associated with intellectual disability. We have successfully trained 5 children in learning imitation and in recognition of emotions. I am currently working with the outpatient team at the Sheffield Children's Hospital to help the children with their anxiety before treatment, like having the blood taken or an X-ray. In a preliminary study, we saw that I was able to put the child at ease, encourage imitation and interaction. We also noted positive behaviors like children kissing or hugging me. A behavior that a child preserves to close family and if he is really happy in your company. That's it for me. Okay, we have finished. See you soon.
So thanks to my colleagues that presented the previous research. Now just a few words on what is the current main project that we are carrying out in our labs, which is a European training network that received 4 million for implementing a multidisciplinary project on personalized robotics. So how robots can use the interaction with the humans to learn about their preferences and needs and customize their services according to that to improve the services itself, but also improve the care, improve the education of children, and improve the efficacy of the services themselves. So there will be 15 outstanding doctoral candidates, and we are recruiting now if you are interested. And they will be based in 10 partners, academic and industrial, all around the Europe, to be the new generation of interdisciplinary research and professional for the forthcoming market of personal robotics. So thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank also my funders, the European Commission, the APSRC, IBM, and the Sheffield Children's Hospital Trust that supported the research that I have presented. And I will be very happy to discuss with you further and to answer to your question during the breakout rooms, or just send me an email to my address that is in the slide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Alessandro. That's really great. It strikes me as though we're maybe not too far away from robots being able to give full lectures, so we need to be slightly careful. Don't work too hard, Alessandro, because I don't want you to put me out of a job. Okay, can I just I want to just invite Alex to see if he wants to comment any further on the discussion you've been having in the chat with Owen about encoding issues and the biases from the data sets that these algorithms can produce. So do you want to just explain your view on that, Alex?
Hi, thanks. Well, I think my concern at the moment is to do with these large language models that we're seeing massive breakthroughs in natural language processing abilities with, but they tend to be trained on sort of large amounts of data, such as Wikipedia or sort of chat logs taken from the internet, which have the same sort of inherent biases that we see, like even more extreme versions of on social media and stuff. So I think that they've got these fantastic advances, but we just have to be a little bit careful in the application of these large language models anywhere where we're looking for nuance rather than just sort of extracting simple entities, for example.
Okay, thanks very much, Alex. I'm going to move on, but I'm just going to remind you that Alessandro and Alex will be available afterwards when we close the formal session in the breakout room, if anyone would like to explore either of their talks any further. I'm going to move on now to Antony Davies, who's Client Relationship Manager for the Sheffield Innovation Programme, which is a joint initiative by Sheffield Hallam University and the University of Sheffield, and it provides innovative support for SMEs. And Antony, I'm going to pass over to you.
Right, good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can't see you at the moment, Antony.
Okay, can you see the screen now?
Yep, see the screen, yeah.
Okay, excellent. Right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk to you about Sheffield Innovation Programme, which we refer to lovingly and affectionately as SIP. So SIP is what we're talking about. Just sorry, bear with me. I'm trying to share my video as well, just in case you want to see that. So next slide is there. Has that slide moved on the screen?
It hasn't moved on our screen, Antony. No.
Okay, I'm sorry about this. How's that?
Yes, that's fine.
Right, excellent. Okay, so what is the Sheffield Innovation Programme? What is SIP? It's a 3-year project which began in October 2019 and runs through to September 2022. So we're not even in the middle of it yet. It's here for some time to come. Possibly will run even beyond September 22. It builds on a previous innovation programme, SIP1 as we call it, from the previous 3 years to October 19. And what it's there to do is to stimulate industry and academic collaborations primarily. We have a number of project partners, the University of Sheffield, Sheffield Hallam University and the Sheffield City Region Growth Hub, and we're all represented here today in some capacity. For those that are not familiar with the Sheffield City Region Growth Hub, the Growth Hub is the business support agency essentially for the Sheffield City region. And the programme SIP covers what we consider to be the old Sheffield City region, so it includes Chesterfield, North East Derbyshire and so on, the areas that you can see in that map there. It is focused exclusively on SMEs, and the definition that's used for the companies that we can work with, the SMEs, is a European definition, so it's less than 250 full-time equivalent staff and turnover less than 50 million euros. So pretty much most businesses in the region we can work with, and that does also include non-profits, charities, as well as commercial companies as well. So what does it do? Importantly, SIP provides consultancy to businesses in the region. Typically, up to about 10 days of support are available. It can be more than that, it can be less than that, it depends on the nature of the project, but typically up to 10 days would be the norm. We are able to provide academic expertise to businesses which have a technical challenge or a problem of some description which they don't have the expertise themselves and or the resource and capacity to deal with. So what we do is we try and identify experts from within either the University of Sheffield or Sheffield Hallam University, or both indeed, who are able to provide the necessary consultancy project to support the companies to address the challenge, the problem that they're seeking to. And an important feature of the funding that we have available, or the program itself, is that it can be used not only to address a technical problem, but it can also be used to help businesses to leverage additional support, particularly through other funding mechanisms such as knowledge transfer partnerships, Innovate UK funds, which were mentioned just a few moments ago. So we can use the consultancy to help do some early work to identify information that might be relevant to the application, for example, for the funding and so on. So it's worth bearing in mind that if you're considering exploring that route, SIP may be able to support you in that capacity as well. We also endeavour to put on a range of workshops, particularly challenging at the moment, of course, because we're not able to do anything face-to-face. But in the normal circumstances, we will put on technical workshops, usually sort of 2-day workshops. Experts within the organisation will put forward topics, and then we will bring businesses together for sort of intensive workshops on those specific topic areas. More latterly, we've been doing some webinars, some shorter webinars, and we'll continue to do those bite-sized, sort of 1 hour to 2 hour type webinars, and we have a series of those planned for late April and onwards as well. Okay, so the types of projects, just to give you some examples, you can see on the list on the screen, there's quite a variety there. Wherever expertise resides within one of the universities, potentially a project can be delivered in that area. Very much depends on the academics that we approach, whether they have the capacity. To be fair, we have to make people aware of that, because obviously academics have other priorities as well. But if we have the capacity and the expertise, of course, somewhere within one of the universities, then potentially we can deliver a project on your behalf. And it covers, as you might expect, a lot of engineering companies, manufacturing, but also business and professional services companies that we work with, non-profits and charities are mentioned, sports organisations. We've done work and are doing work with some of the professional football clubs in the region. So pretty much most businesses that fit within that SME definition can come to us and seek support through SIP. And just to mention, more recently, we have a sister program to SIP called Digital Innovation for Growth. It operates in very much the same way as SIP, but the focus is specifically digital innovation projects. So this is a newer program, European funded again, specifically for SMEs. As you can see from the slide, some indications of the types of projects it can support. And my colleague that's involved in running that, Jim, is on this call as well today on the webinar. So I'm sure he'd be happy to pick up on any questions there as well. Okay, so I think we've pretty much rounded up. So yes, we have. So thank you for your attention. And of course, I'm around to take questions as and when the opportunity arises.
Many thanks there, Anthony. I'm just going to give everyone an opportunity if they want to ask any questions to put anything in the chat to you. So if you'd like to ask a question of Anthony just at the moment, anyone, feel free to put it into the chat. And that could be practical issues about SIP or thematic questions or comments that you want to raise. Okay, Anthony, I've got a question from Mel here. What's the take-up like of SIP and DIFG?
DIFG is in its early stages, so that's just getting up and running, although there are a number of projects already up and running, particularly through engineering, through our computing departments. With SIP, inevitably it slowed down during the last 12 months or so, but there have been new inquiries trickling in through that period. One of the challenges we had obviously was accessing our facilities within the university particularly during the throes of the pandemic last year. As the facilities have opened up, we've been able to crack on with those projects, and there is now an increase in the number of inquiries that are coming through, which are transferring into actual projects. So yes, we're a little bit behind where we hope we would be, but that's understandable, of course. We are now sort of starting to accelerate again. So yes, fingers crossed. By the end of the program, we'll have achieved the outputs that we want to achieve for the funders.
Thanks, Anthony. Another question from Ceri. Digital innovation for growth looks like a fantastic opportunity. What kind of financial and mentor support is available?
There's no financial support. Essentially, it operates in the same way that SIP does, by providing access to the digital innovation for growth is just Sheffield Hallam University as the academic partner there, but it provides consultancy support essentially from the academics within the university. The Digital Media Centre at Barnsley are also a partner in the project as well, and so there are digital advisors who will work with businesses as well as the academics, but there's not mentoring specifically.
So, Anthony, is just to clarify, the digital consultancy that's available, that's free to the user, is it?
It is. It's fully funded, so notionally, again, up to 10 days, and that's from primarily academics within the university, and it's fully funded, so no cost to the business.
So that's the case for both SIP and for DIFG.
Yes, sorry if I didn't make that clear. Yes, it is absolutely fully funded consultancy, free of charge to the SMEs.
Excellent. Just a quick. Alex is commenting here. For instance, some of the work Alex Shenfield has done has been through SIP and DIFG. So thanks for that, Alex. That's a good example. Anthony, if people are interested in finding out more and potentially accessing the service, who do they contact?
They can come in a number of different routes. The gateway inquiry, SIP, directly through SIP inquiries at shu.ac.uk, through the Growth Hub itself, through either of the university business inquiry functions as well. But I think my contact details were on the screen, if they're not still on the screen as well. So they'll go out with this. Okay, excellent. Thanks very much, Anthony. Thank you. I'm going to move on now, if I may. So we're going to now switch tack to look at
at business. So I'm going to invite Sam Briggs, who is Managing Director at Starling Solutions, to talk about introducing Starling, which is a Sheffield tech startup. And following Sam, we're going to introduce Kerry Batchelder, who is a super connector at Team SY Capital Enterprise, who will talk about Spotlight on tech startups. So over to you first, Sam.
Thanks, Kevin. I jumped the gun a bit there with showing my screen. I had it all lined up and then pressed the button by accident. But there we are. Great, thanks for the introduction. It's been great to hear some of these presentations covering, I guess, a bit of ground. You know, we work in manufacturing and some of the applications have been seen there, which is great. So I'm Sam Briggs, the founder of Starling. And as Kevin said, we're a Sheffield-based startup working primarily in the manufacturing sector. And you'll be familiar with the term Industry 4.0. You know, we've heard it a bit today already, and it's the automation of industry using smart technology. And it's often, if you come from a manufacturing perspective, it can be very complex understanding it, and it can be a bit daunting for manufacturers, the idea of this. But that is changing, and there are various companies creating very simple technologies to improve adoption. And in Sheffield, indeed, we've got several tech startups working to deliver this. There's Elements Technology that have delivered software integrating AI, which helps to track production, and Forjaw are another company delivering a Fitbit for manufacturing, kind of manufacturing analytics. And then there's us as well. So a lot of the Industry 4.0 technology is focused on automating production lines. Our focus is on the people side of things, making sure that the processes and the paperwork associated with training people is all automated. So I'm going to chat to you a bit about that. So a lot of manufacturers rely on paper-based procedures and training records, and we help to automate that process. So I used to work for a rubber moulding business, and found a number of issues there with their paper-based processes, which we'll go on to on the next slide. And Starling was founded really to solve these problems. Issues around kind of paper-based documentation. Operators have trouble finding what they need and have wordy and difficult to understand documents. And the people creating them spend a lot of time fiddling around with Word and Excel, trying to get things working, and then kind of going through the approval process. Quality assurance can also be quite a big challenge, managing document control to a sufficient level, as well, and management needing that live data to make good decision making, and not firefighting issues, but being able to make improvements by not having to chase information around. And there's a lot of risks around this, but primarily it's the risks of non-compliance in audits, which can result in financial penalties, the risk of sending out non-conforming product and missing out on improvements in manufacturing processes. So we offer a solution to completely remove paperwork, to reduce errors, speed up the process and reduce bottlenecks, and you know, really get training up to scratch. So you know, our platform integrates kind of the documents, which are very easy to use, easy to follow on mobiles and tablets, and integrates the training. So you're always on the latest version, and your training's always up to date, taking away kind of the barriers and making sure that everyone is getting the information they need without someone having to manage that process using spreadsheets and calendar reminders. So just a bit about how our software works. It centralizes all of the information, so you can get it in one location. We use a lot of videos, so companies go on and create their own documents, their procedures and processes. And someone mentioned the food industry. You know, it is critical for them to get all this information right, and they're seeing our customers using it in that industry are seeing benefits from simplifying their training and document creation. It means that people can get away from their desks and create procedures on the shop floor, and it helps to drive improvements, so to automate the kind of document control, making sure that all of your paperwork is up to date. As well, it helps to drive improvements within the business. You can help get your staff to make suggestions, improvements, and it really helps to get buy-in from staff. And this next quote illustrates that. One of our customers saw a reject drop in 70% through this tool, and primarily that was through engaging with their staff, getting them to understand the importance of quality, standardization, and then helping use their feedback to implement improvements. And they saw significant benefits from the result of that. It's perhaps a bit different to other talks. It's quite a practical tool for companies looking to digitalize their processes. It tends to be a bit different from what people have seen previously, and hopefully just interesting for you in seeing what a Sheffield based company is doing in this sector. Great. If any questions, then let me know.
Thanks very much, Sam. That's really interesting. Again, just to remind people, if they've got questions for Sam or for Ceri, who's going to talk now, please just post them in the chat as they speak, and I'll pick them up at the end of Ceri's talk. I'm passing over to you now, Ceri.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Hi, everybody. I'm Ceri Batchelder, and today I am a talking head. I've on two very new projects, and so I thought it might be better just to talk about them and explain. So I hope you don't mind. So I'm actually one of the university's entrepreneurs in residence, and I'm going to tell you about a couple of new projects I'm involved in that are designed to support our culture of entrepreneurship and innovation in Sheffield City region and South Yorkshire. So the first one is called Team South Yorkshire, and that was the title that Kevin mentioned. And I have got this strange title, Super Connector, which was kind of designated, but I'm just going with the flow, having some fun with it, and trying to make some connections. So Team South Yorkshire, Team stands for Tech Ecosystem, Acceleration and Market Making. And it's a £5.9 million project that's supported by the European Regional Development Fund. And the project is run by a startup organisation, an organisation that supports startups called Capital Enterprise. They're based in London, but increasingly they've got a regional reach, and they're partnering with Barnsley Council locally to deliver this project, and I'm one of two regional leads. And our aim on Team SY is to really supercharge the ecosystem to support tech startups and scale-ups to really help their formation and growth. And we're doing this by bringing in match funding so that we can really support different business programs and make sure that they can, for example, get the quality of people that they need. The idea of the match is that it really raises the bar. We don't have to entirely rely on perhaps interns and volunteers. We can actually get dedicated people who've got time to run the program in a high quality fashion. And so one of the ways we're doing this is we're supporting local programs, so Indigenous programs, but we're also bringing in and creating new programs. So for example, with local, national and international providers. So really trying to create a world-class provision in our region. And the main type of activity, if you're wondering the types of things we're doing, is to produce two types of program. One is called a pre-accelerator, and that's where entrepreneurs and new startups really develop their early stage concepts. And the other one are accelerators, where more established startups come with a prototype product and some evidence of market fit, sort of market traction. And both, as the name suggests, is designed to accelerate the business and really help the technology development and help the business grow. Now, some themes we're exploring at the moment include general support. So, for example, trying to help with the entrepreneurial mindset, particularly during different transitions of the business. Also raising investment, that's a really important area. And then we're looking at more themed areas such as health tech, manufacturing, cybersecurity, like Alex Shenfield just talked about, AI, robotics, as Alessandro mentioned, and Internet of Things. So, you know, really interesting kind of portfolio of programs and content, you know, that really could bring some interesting new technologies and businesses to our region. After this sort of main phase of bringing these programs in, my colleague Samantha Deakin and myself are both going to be entrepreneur facing, and we're very much, you know, talking to entrepreneurs at the moment, such as Sam, and trying to make the right links and introduce them to the right people and the right programs to really help with their development. And the project lasts till June 2023. And during that time, we'll increasingly be developing our regional profile and our communications. Right, and the next project is called the Synergy Project, and I'm delighted to say my collaborator Mel Kanarek is on the call, and this is part of a Sheffield City Region programme where they're working with MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it's an activity called REAP, or Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Programme. And I'll just give you a bit of background what MIT means by innovation and about REAP itself. So MIT defines innovation as the process of taking ideas from inception to impact. And the MIT REAP framework provides a learning structure to enable regions to become more innovative and achieve social and economic impact. And they do this by a 5-stakeholder model, bringing together corporates, local government, universities, entrepreneurs, and risk finance. And the framework's based on research showing that regions that are successful in entrepreneurship and innovation take a data-driven approach and really develop 2 areas, that a capacity for entrepreneurship and innovation. And if you get these conditions right, you kind of create the right environment for innovation-driven enterprises. And that could be startups, or it could be existing businesses that take an innovative approach. So, Mel and I are kind of exploring what makes our innovation ecosystem tick. And we're looking to identify different gaps and opportunities. And we're doing this by interviewing entrepreneurial leaders and people in businesses that are really taking an innovation angle to deliver benefit and growth. And the idea is that we'll get their inputs and we'll co-design some test activities to see what can we do, what can we implement to really achieve some kind of interesting changes in our innovation landscape, which really supports our businesses and the rest of the innovation community as well. So by way of example, the type of outcome, it could be a support activity for a particular technology or business challenge, or it could be ways to improve the navigation of the landscape. And we're also working with what we call a connection team, and these are additional regional partners that can really help Mel and I understand the landscape and increase the reach of the project. So I'll put all the links, the relevant links from what I've talked about in the chat shortly. So I just wanted to end. I hope I've got a minute left. But essentially, I finished my entrepreneur in residence role at the end of May, and I just want to say what a delight it has been to work with the University of Sheffield so closely. And I've been working with staff and students to develop digital projects and partnerships. And I've just seen the kind of potential for businesses, local authorities, and other people to get involved with universities, both with Sheffield Hallam and the University of Sheffield. And I'd hugely advocate, this interdisciplinary research and multi-stakeholder projects, because I think it can really support our region and make it grow. So I'd really, encourage everyone to get involved, and you'll find out that you'll have a fantastic interaction and create some new products and services, and and new potential for your businesses and organisations. Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much, Ceri. That's really fascinating. I'm just going to mention it. It's been addressed in the chat, but just thought that Joan Cordiner, who's going to speak in a moment, made a really interesting point about research showing that essentially people learn better through gamification and through short, sharp bursts of learning when they're training, and it's perhaps a good example of the benefit of the MD Club in that Sam Briggs doesn't yet have that in his software solutions, but looks like potentially some future conversations will take place between Sam and Joan to explore that further. I'm just looking to see if anyone's got a question for Ceri before I move on.
That's fine, Kevin. I'll put some of the links in the chat. There was a lot of information there, so it will give people a chance to sort of work out in more detail what these projects are about. That's absolutely fine. There's no escape. I'll connect with everyone later.
Right. Thanks very much. And thanks, Owen, for your detective work. We have established that Sam Briggs has got a firm foothold in Sheffield. That's great to hear. Excellent. So we're going to move on then to our final session, where we're going to go to Professor Joan Cordiner, who is Professor of Process Engineering and Director of External Engagement at the University of Sheffield. And hopefully, I think Joan's managed to bring one of her PhD students, Aaron Yardley, who will hopefully present the final slide. I hope that's right, Joan. And they're going to talk about advances in the Department of Chemical Engineering in 4 areas of strength: sustainability, bioprocessing, energy and process systems engineering. I'll then move on to Dr. Peyman Moghadam, who's lecturer in Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering at the University of Sheffield, to look at data-driven materials discovery from energy storage to smart manufacturing. So over to you, Joan.
Hi, thank you, and thank you for the invite. So I'm going to talk to you about what the Department of Chemical and Biological Engineering has been up to lately that might be of interest. And Dr. Peyman Moghadam is also in our department, so I'm doing a bit of an overview and he's going to talk more specifically about his work, and I have one of our absolutely amazing PhD students who'll present our last slide of my talk, just to sort of give you a bit more detail of the sort of things we're doing. Perhaps you don't know, we're one of the largest chemical engineering departments in the UK. We were #1 for research environment and in research income, #2 in the Russell Group for student satisfaction, and of course we're accredited. So a significant presence in the UK and globally in chemical engineering. I've recently joined the university last January, coming from 30 years in industry, latterly as a technology manager and a global risk manager for what was ICI, AstraZeneca, Syngenta, and since joining the university have consulted with a number of companies across particularly processes and process safety or process systems design. The department, we have a lot of funding, lots of fantastic facilities, including our pilot plant, and a lot of grants going on across different areas, but particularly these 4 theme areas: process and systems engineering, which is a lot about digital 4.0 that we've already heard about, and a lot of commonality with some of the other speakers. We have a big group in biological engineering, sustainability, net zero, and also in novel materials and products. So I'm just going to give you a couple of examples. from the department of different people doing some really exciting things. And if any of these take your interest, you can join us in the groups or contact me and I'll be able to put you in touch with any of my colleagues. So in the last year, our biological engineering groups have been very involved in COVID, including designing and building antigens for the COVID testing. So there's a good chance if you've had a COVID test that the antigens were developed in one of our labs, and the protein purification to understand the different variants of COVID, including the new UK and South African variants were developed also in our labs. We have all sorts of work in different types of biological processes, do a lot of work with big companies like Lonza and AstraZeneca, GSK, Pfizer, just to mention a few, and also work with things from all over the world, including improving eye drops. Another thing that's affected the Sheffield region is testing COVID in wastewater, along with kind of a whole load of other stuff. So that gives you a flavour of our biological engineering, biomanufacturing and bioscale-up. And then moving into our sustainability and also materials areas, we've done a lot of work in improving battery technology. As we move towards net zero, we need to improve batteries. Professor Ceri in Accor has won a very large Faraday Fellowship for developing novel batteries and materials, and we have a whole group of academics working with her, and including machine learning or artificial intelligence, and how do you manage the electricity grid that we'll have to work with all these batteries, and how do you get the most optimal solutions out of that. And Dr. Saul Brown does a lot of that sort of optimization work. Then we have folks working in novel materials like novel cement. You wouldn't believe, or certainly I was surprised, just how much the construction industry and the making and use of cement adds to the CO2 problem that we need to deal with. So Dr. Brant Walkley is working in those areas, along with huge projects with companies like Unilever, and then new bacterial and algal processes to decarbonise the UK military. And these are just a sort of flavour of some of the things that we're doing in the materials areas. We have Dr. Alan Dunbar working on new solar cells that can revolutionise, the old standard solar cells, to the point that even in winter in Sheffield, we should be able to have great benefit from solar technology. And from the big scale of these solar cells down to the nano scale with nanoporous silicas, for example, that Dr. Siddharth Padawan has worked on, and then solving corrosion problems that affect many processes at the microscopic scale. And Dr. Campbell has done a lot of work, particularly around metal corrosion with things like carbonates and water that affect not only chemical processes but manufacturing processes of all types. You've heard a bit about from our first speaker working with Siemens. Well, we've been working with Siemens with making a digital twin in our pilot plant, which is a pilot facility that replicates making granules, and using artificial intelligence to be able to optimize it much better without the expensive of adding lots of extra sensors. Then we have a whole group working on process and systems, and all four of us work across these areas in one way or other. You'll hear more from Dr. Peyman in a second. I have brought a lot of work in resilience and process safety, but also process modelling optimisation and computer-aided molecular design or computer-aided formulation or product design. And then we have a lot of work around machine learning, and that should be advanced modelling of formulation processes. It hasn't converted very well. And we have a global leader of formulation development, particularly around wet granulation in the department, in our head of department. So that's given you a whirlwind tour of some of the things that we do in the chemical engineering or chemical and biological engineering department. Now, a lot of our optimization techniques don't need a chemical or biological process to work. So a lot of our techniques can be used to multiple types of process, and I work a lot with the AMRC, for example, in predicting novel lubricants for that are going to be environmentally friendly and improved effect, just as an example. So I've brought along Aaron Yardley, who's a PhD student of Dr. Saul Brown and I, just to give you an example that even working with one PhD student can benefit. So Aaron, if you want to take over.
Hi Joan, thanks for the introduction. So I work with Dr. Solomon Brown and Professor j.cordiner, working on work very similar to the first presentation by Alex. It's all about machine learning, and I know I've got to be very quick here, so I'll quickly just briefly go through it. What I'm wanting to do now is collaborate with businesses to be able to apply machine learning, chemical engineering and process engineering situations. Because I've been around the department quite a lot, I've helped the likes of Professor Jim Litster, Peyman, who's about to speak next. I've worked with Joan, and I've also worked with Siddharth Patwardhan and published a few papers. So what we're wanting to do now is hopefully be able to apply it to small, medium enterprises and help some processes in sensitivity analysis, optimization, making predictions and analysing large data sets ready for Industry 4.0. So thank you for listening to me. If there's any questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Aaron. And I'm going to pass straight over to Dr. Peyman Moghadam from the University of Sheffield. Just while Peyman's loading up his slides, just again reminder, if anything that Joan and Aaron just said there, you'd like to ask them about, you can either do it in the chat or they'll be around afterwards if you would like to explore any further. Are you there, Peyman?
Sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Peyman. Yep,
okay,
go ahead.
Perfect. And can you see the slides?
I can't see a slide. It may be that's just me, though.
How about now?
Can somebody else just confirm if they can see Peyman's slides?
I can see the slide.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead, Peyman.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Eleanor, for giving me the opportunity to give a talk here. My name is Peyman Moghadam. I'm a lecturer at the University of Sheffield, and before coming to Sheffield, I was the head of the computational group at the Adsorption and Advanced Materials Lab at the University of Cambridge, and there I was working with a few oil and gas companies such as Shell and BP when I started working on developing data-driven approaches to speed up the way we design and discover new functional materials for energy storage and carbon capture applications. Joan mentioned metal organic frameworks in one of her slides. And since then, in my lab, we sort of continued developing these data analytics tools. And quite recently, we started exploring new applications in how powerful data visualization and analytics can help us sort of unravel the complexity of data in different industrial settings, in particular for ideas around Industry 4.0 and smart factories, which ideas that was already discussed today. So let me very briefly tell you about the fourth industrial revolution that is happening right now. I think it's good to kind of place this fourth industrial revolution in this broad context. So if you go back to the first industry revolution in the 18th century, which was based on generation of power through coal and steam, which led to the invention of numerous patents and technologies, I have to say. And it was really the first time that we transferred animal power to machine power, right? Now, the second and the third industrial revolutions had to do with the introduction of electrification and automation in manufacturing. And right now, we are at the heart of this fourth industry revolution, and there is a massive explosion of digital technologies that sees the integration of what we see as the sort of cyber systems with the physical world. So we're bringing these two worlds together. Okay. So the same way the first industry revolution replaced muscle power with machines, I think this fourth industry revolution is trying to replace minds with big data, machine learning, and AI. And I have to say, it's really fascinating for me that we are in the middle of this revolution right now. And for example, I can talk to you through this digital platform. But if the pandemic happened just probably a few years ago, all this communication probably wouldn't be possible, right? So all this is really fast-paced innovations and just happening now, similar to the way this was happening in the first industry revolution. So there are different facets to Industry 4.0, but my group's research interests are pretty much focused on data. I think the huge amount of data the different businesses and industries are actually producing is basically a blessing and also a curse. It's a blessing because data provides tremendous opportunities for us basically to learn and extract actionable insights, but it's also a curse, right? Because it creates the significant challenge of how do we analyze and visualize gigabytes of data, which are most likely all unstructured. So this is what we are trying to address in my lab. We are trying to address this challenge by developing tools to help us better understand the big data around us. So I don't have lots of time, but I'd like to show you an example of how powerful data visualization techniques can provide insightful basically ideas and useful basically insights, okay? So here I'm just showing a simple performance property relationship graph for 20 structures. So there are 20 data points or 20 structures in this graph, where we calculated some sort of performance and plotted it against a given property of the materials. This is property A in this graph. Okay. So you can see a little bit of trend in the performance of data, but these trends are not very clear. You can see that the performance sort of increases as property A increases, but then it decreases as property A approaches larger values around 25. Okay, and the reason for this lack of clarity is in identifying trends is that we don't have lots of data in this graph. Now, if I recalculate the performance and do the same calculations I did for these 20 structures, but now if I do it for 3,000 structures, my performance property graph becomes much more clear. Becomes basically something like this. So in this graph, you can see that there is a clear peak in the performance of the materials where property A is around 10 to 15. Units don't matter at this point. You can also see the emergence of physical boundaries of your data cloud. So you can immediately see that you wouldn't be able to design a structure with performance value of 25 when, for example, property A approaches high values around 30. But if you look closer, you can see that in the same region of property A between 10 to 15, yes, I have structures performing really well, but I also have rubbish structures with average or bad performance. So the question is, what is the difference between these materials or structures? Now, if I change the plot from a 2D plot to a 3-dimensional plot, so basically color the data points according to a third property of my materials. This is shown as the property B in the color bar, which represents values from 0 to 1. You can clearly see that all my high-performing materials are those with property B values closer to 1, which are represented by the blue and purple colors. So this is now a 3D graph. I can do actually better. I can go ahead and present my data now in 4 dimensions. So I can change the size of the data points according to a fourth property, property C, shown on top of the slide. And again, you can clearly see that the top performing materials are those represented with larger data points with values closer to 1,000. So now I have a basically 4-dimensional graph now, and what I really like about these graphs is actually their predictive power. So if a colleague comes to me and says, I have developed a completely new material and asks me how do you think it will perform in the context of this particular analysis, the only question I need to ask him or her is that, what is the property B of your material? And if the answer is property B is roughly 0.5, I can immediately look at the color bar at the bottom of the screen and say, okay, 0.5, that material will probably sit in the greenish region of my performance property graph. So without lifting a finger, without doing any calculations, I should be able to help my colleague and say, okay, your material will probably won't perform really well in this context. So I can make basically predictions of how future materials or processes can behave, and these are very, very informative data analytics that can be applied to any multidimensional problem. So I'm going to wrap up. I'd like to tell you about the software we have actually developed with colleagues from the University of Cambridge and Caltech from the US, where you can easily generate all these multidimensional plots to analyze your data. We call the software Wiz, and I have to say that there is no need for the user to have any programming or coding skills. You just need to upload your multidimensional data set and enjoy the beautiful plots that Wiz can actually make for you. You can also do other types of data analytics. We don't have time to go through those, but feel free to ask me questions during the breakout session. So our software actually won the first prize, prize in the software competition held at the University of Sheffield a couple of years ago, and was also picked for the cover image of the new self-press journal called Patterns. And if you want to know more about Wiz and how it works, please take a look at the website for Wiz or read our publication that is cited in this slide. So the last slide, I promise, just to tell you that we are now working with Siemens to set up Wiz in Siemens's cloud-based operating system, MindSphere, where we can read data from different manufacturing equipment and processes, if they are IoT enabled, and generate our multidimensional plots in real time. So as the data is generated, you would be able to visualize and analyze it for the entire process or operation. Sorry, I know I ran out of time. I sincerely thank all the people in this slide, especially those from the University of Sheffield and our collaborators in Siemens. And thank you all for listening.
Thanks very much, Peyman. So Joan, Aaron, and Peyman will be available in one of the breakout rooms if you'd like to follow up with any further discussion on that. Sure. I'm just going to to run through the breakout rooms, and I think Bryony, you will open these up when we formally close the session. But in breakout room number 1, we've got Alex and Alessandro. So that's the artificial intelligence and robotics guys from Hallam. Then in breakout room number 2, we've got Anthony, who is the Sheffield Innovation Programme and the Digital Innovation for Growth. So if you'd like to find out anything more about those. Joan, Aaron and Peyman from the University of Sheffield, the Chemical Engineering and the Chemical and Biological Engineering department there are in room number 3. In room number 4, we've got Sam and Ceri, so about entrepreneurship. And Sam, by the way, I've checked on your website, you've got some wonderful murmurations of starlings on there, so I get the name now. And then finally, just a quick reminder that Ron Dyer, who's a senior university teacher at the University of Sheffield Management School, is available in breakout room number 5 to discuss integrating technology to combat cyber risk. Okay, so there's your options for the next sort of 10-15 minutes. Brian, is there anything that you want to say before we stop? Okay.
No, I don't think so. There should be some instructions on the screen. They do look a bit blurry, but I have just started them, so people can start going in whenever.
Yeah, if as people do go to the